I'm Brad Williams with College Options, and I want to talk to you today about financial aid. And I always start by telling families that I understand that the whole process of financial aid can be very confusing, mysterious, intimidating. Put whatever word on it that you want. I understand that and I get that. So my goal of this video recording is hopefully to take some, if not most, of the mystery out of the financial aid process for you. I hope that I'm able to do that for you today. Before I get into some detail about financial aid, the financial aid awarding process, I want to give you a broad overview of the whole process. And it all starts by filling out the FAFSA. You may be well aware of that. FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid. And I emphasize the first F as free. You should never have to pay anyone to help you fill out a FAFSA. You've got people like myself at College Options. You've got your own high school counselors or other people in the financial aid office at your college or university that can help you with that as well. You should never have to pay for it. In most cases, you're going to put information on the FAFSA about the student, demographic information, and financial information, and also about the parents. Similarly, demographic information and financial information. And when you fill out that FAFSA and you hit submit on that FAFSA, that information that you've put on there is going to go multiple places all at the same time. The first place it's going to go is to the federal government, and they're going to be looking at your financial situation to determine if you're eligible for free federal money, which is called the Pell Grant, free money. They're also looking to determine if you're eligible for federal student loans. And what I tell families is, I don't know where you are on the continuum of student loans are okay on the one end, or student loans are the worst thing ever created in the history of mankind on the other end. I don't know where you might be there. And that's, of course, for a family to determine and figure out for themselves. Excuse me, but I will say this, that if you find yourself in need of student loans, federal loans are the best for students. They have the lowest interest rate, the lowest origination fees, and they have the best repayment options available. So again, we've hit submit on the FAFSA. It goes to the federal government, and that information also goes to the state government. Of course, in our case, that's California. And more specifically, it goes to the California Student Aid Commission, our friends in Rancho Cordova. And they are looking at your financial information to determine if you're eligible either for the Cal Grant, which is arguably the most generous form of state-free financial aid in the country, or what's called the California Middle Class Scholarship. That's also free money. You can't get both. You can get one or the other. And I'll talk in more detail about both of those a little bit later. Additionally, when you hit submit on your FAFSA, that information goes to every school that you've listed on your FAFSA. And that you can, when you fill out your FAFSA, you can list up to 10 schools. If that's not enough, you can let the FAFSA process for a week or so, come back into the FAFSA later. You can take some schools off the list. You can add some more on. You can just keep doing that, and you can add as many schools as you would like. Those schools are looking at your financial information to determine if you're eligible for their own money, or what we'll refer to as institutional aid. So public schools have some of their own money to give out. Private schools have even more of their own money to give out to students in the form of scholarships. Private schools have what are called endowments. Some of them are very large. And in these endowments, donors have given money to the school with the sole intent for that school to give that money out to students so that they can afford to attend that private school. Private schools are generally, most often, a higher cost to attend than our public schools. But again, remember, private schools have a lot more of their own money to give out. For example, Harvard has over $40 billion in their endowment. Stanford has over $30 billion in their endowment. So some of these schools have, I mean, just a ton of money to be able to give out in the form of scholarships. So you can begin filling out the FAFSA each year on October 1st. And the whole reason we go through the process of filling out the FAFSA, the whole end game, if you will, is to receive from our schools that we've listed on the FAFSA a financial aid award offer. And for every school that you've applied to and you've been accepted to, and you've listed them on the FAFSA, you do those three things, you will get a financial aid award offer from that school. The financial aid office, the financial aid staff will put that offer together for you. It's a formula that they use to do that. They begin by taking their cost of attendance, and every school has a different cost of attendance. And the cost of attendance is made up of 5 factors, which you'd figure out if you just thought about it for a minute. It's not really complicated. It's tuition, room and board, books and supplies, transportation, and personal expenses. Those 5 factors make up cost of attendance. And from that cost of attendance, the financial aid office subtracts your family's expected family contribution, or EFC. And let me define that term for you. That is a number, a numerical figure that is generated by the federal government for every family that fills out a FAFSA. It's based on the information you put on your FAFSA, and it's based on 5 elements of information that you put on the FAFSA: income, assets, number in the household going to college, and the age of the oldest parent. And I will say it is a very, 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 very complex and complicated formula. Not all of those factors are equally weighted when that EFC value is calculated. Many families, when they see that value, now that value as determined by the government is what the federal government believes, based on your financial situation, that your family can afford to contribute to the education of your student in the next academic year. Many families look at that number and say, you got to be kidding me. How can the government believe that I can afford that much for my student in the next academic year? All I can tell you is if you find yourself in that situation, you would not be alone. There are many other families in the United States that feel that way as well. So back to that financial aid award offer. Financial aid office takes their cost of attendance, they subtract your expected family contribution value from it, and what they get then is your financial need. And the financial aid office will attempt to give you financial aid equal to your financial need. And by the way, financial aid comes 4 ways: grants, scholarships, work study, and loans. And as I tell families all the time, we love, love, love grants and scholarships. Why? Free money. Give me more of that. Give me more free money. I'll take as much as I can get. Then it would be work study, which is earned money. That's the ability to get a job, usually on campus with the school, get a paycheck, take some of that money and pay for your schooling. And then, of course, loans are borrowed money, and you've got to pay those back at some point in time in the future. So the school will attempt to give you financial aid equal to your financial need. Sometimes they can do that, but oftentimes they cannot do that. They're coming up short in being able to give you all the financial need that you have. Then you'll have what's called unmet need. If you take that unmet need value, add it to your original expected family contribution value, that is what a family can anticipate they're going to have to pay out of pocket, if you will, for that student in the upcoming academic year. That's a broad overview. I think it helps to get the kind of the big picture. Why are we filling out the FAFSA? Well, we want to see financial aid award offers. Some schools are more generous than others with their funds, with their money. And I encourage students to see apply to many schools, get many financial aid award offers back, see who's going to give you, quote unquote, the best deal financially. It doesn't mean that's where you need to attend, but it would be good just to have that information so you have some choices, some affordable choices to pick from. I mentioned you can fill out your FAFSA starting on October 1st each year. Let me just tell you that if you're applying to a California state school or University of California school, you're probably not going to see your financial aid award offer until March, probably, sometimes April, but usually it's March. So it takes a while. Private schools can sometimes turn their financial aid award offers around more quickly, but just be aware of that. All right, I am going to share my screen now. I'm going to pull up a PowerPoint presentation that will go through some details of the financial aid process for us, and that I hope you will find helpful. First of all, let me again say that my name is Brad Williams. I am with College Options. We're located in downtown Reading. Here's my email address. You can contact me at any time if you have any questions, if I can help you fill out your FAFSA. When you're in high school, when you're in college, when you have children of your own, whatever that may be, I'd be more than happy to help. That's probably the best way to get a hold of me is through my email address, bwilliams@collegeoptions.org. Here's my phone number that rings right here in my office on my desk, 768-5103. College Options is on social media. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram at College Options Inc. So follow us. That would be fantastic. We have a website, collegeoptions.org, with a ton of helpful information there. And I want you to know that this presentation that I'm making here today that you're watching is available for you to be able to pull up on our website. Go to collegeoptions.org, go to the financial aid tab, scroll on down the page to a section that says Financial Aid PowerPoint Presentation College Options. Click on that link, you get a drop-down menu, and you'll see all the information that I'm going over with you today on that website. Just a quick word about College Options. We serve the five counties here in the North State. You can see them listed there. Any families in these 5 counties, all of the services that we provide at College Options are free, no cost to those families, for which we are very, very grateful to our funders. We have some grant funding and some other sources of funding that comes in that allows us to do that at no cost to our families, which we love, love, love. We really have 3 service lines at College Options. First is academic or college preparation. If you need help filling out an application to go to college, if you need help with the personal inquiry questions, you need help with essays, we've got somebody that can help with that. Career exploration, not sure what you want to study, not sure what you want to do as a career after college, or even parents. I've been in this career, but I'm not sure it's the right one for me. You may be interested in exploring some of this information as well. We've got some really cool tools, really great tools where we will match not only your interest, but also your aptitude, what you're good at. So your interest with what you're good at will give you a large set of careers that would be good for you. They'll tell you what each of those careers would pay on an annual basis, and will tell you if there's any schooling required or what kind of schooling would be required in order to get into that career that might be of interest to you. So it's really a nice service that we provide. We've got somebody that's an expert in that, and you can reach out. I can help put you in contact with those folks if you need help with those services. Also, financial aid, that's what I do. That's our 3rd line of service. And I've given you my contact information. You can contact me at any time. My primary goal today in talking with you is to take the mystery out of the financial aid process. I'm hopeful that I'm able to do that. Some of it, a lot of it, I would hope I could do that. So a few other goals listed there, not the least of which is help you understand how to maximize your potential for financial aid as a family, and particularly how to maximize your potential for free money in that financial aid equation. All right, here's a document. It's also under the financial aid tab on our website. It's called How Need-Based Financial Aid Works. It's 2 pages. I told you early on when I started here that I was going to give you an overview of the financial aid process. I did that verbally. Well, here it is in a written form. Talks about the EFC, talks about the FAFSA, talks about the financial aid award offer. Excuse me. I've even given you a numerical example of the financial aid award offer in here. Feel free, you can refer back to that at any point in time. You can pull that off of our website. All right, so what is the FAFSA? Well, quite frankly, it is your gateway to financial aid. You've got to fill it out in order to be able to get financial aid. Again, there are the 4 types of financial aid that we talked about. It's also used to determine your expected family contribution, or your EFC, as calculated by the government. You got to fill it out every year that you're in college, so be aware of that. There are multiple ways to fill it out. Most people do it on a desktop or a laptop, but you can also do it on your mobile devices now. There's an app for everything these days, right? So there's even an app for filling out the FAFSA. It's called My Student Aid mobile app. You get it at your app store, and it's actually quite good. So I would encourage you, if you like to work on a smartphone or a tablet, download that app, fill out your FAFSA that way. Then there's the old school paper version. I do not recommend that, only as a last resort. It's much, much better to file your FAFSA electronically if you can. Here is the landing page for the FAFSA, so you'll know you're in the right place. If you're new, you start here, pretty simple. If you're returning, by the way, when you start your FAFSA, you don't have to do it all in one sitting. You can save your work. You can come back later, returning user, go back in, finish it off, correct something you might have made a mistake on, add schools. We talked about that before. So you hit that button right down there and log in that way. Here's the process. You go to studentaid.gov/FAFSA, but you don't have to remember that. You just remember Google search the term FAFSA. That will get you to the right place. I already mentioned it's available every October. Well, for this year, it became available on October 1st of 2021. For the FAFSA to be filed for the academic year next year, 2022-2023. So we're in 2021, for example, filling out the FAFSA for the next year, 2022-2023. And to make it just a little bit more complicated, we're going to reach back to 2020, and that's where we're going to get our income information for providing on the FAFSA. We're going to get that off of our tax returns for 2020. So just be aware of how that process plays out. When you submit your FAFSA, there is a deadline. And let me say that all of this information as well applies to the CADA, or the California DREAM Act application. The same deadline applies. For the Cal Grant, the deadline is March 2nd. Every year it's March 2nd. It is a Cal Grant, again, is very, very generous offer of free money from the state of California. At its highest, it's over $14,000 per year. You can get that for 4 years. An amazingly generous offer of free money. But if you qualify on every other aspect of the Cal Grant, but you file your FAFSA on March 3rd instead of before March 2nd, you're not going to be able to get that money. So don't even come close to March 2nd, file much before that. When you file a FAFSA, before you file a FAFSA, you in order to fill out your FAFSA, in order to sign your FAFSA, quote unquote, sign your FAFSA electronically, the student will need an FSA ID, a federal student aid ID, which is a username and password, which you create for yourself. And one parent will need an FSA ID, username and password, which you create for yourself. You can do that at any time. In fact, you should do that before you start working on the FAFSA. That will help you fill out the FAFSA a whole lot faster. Why file the FAFSA? Well, again, it is your gateway to those 4 types of financial aid coming from those 3 primary sources of aid, right? Federal government, state government, higher education institutions themselves. It really only takes about 30 minutes to complete. It's gotten easier and easier over the years. And they now feature what's called the IRS Data Retrieval Tool, or DRT. I encourage all families to use the DRT when you go into FAFSA, and it begins to ask you for income information. It will ask you if you want to go out to the IRS website to get that information. I suggest you say yes. It will take you out to the IRS website. It will grab all of the financial aid information off of your 2020 tax return. It will bring it back into the FAFSA and drop it right in where it's needed, completely accurately. And it happens very, very quickly. About as quickly as it took me to describe that is about how quickly it actually does it on the FAFSA. So be aware of that. Really, really helps the accuracy, but also helps speed up the process by using the DRT. It's really, really a cool tool. As soon as you hit submit on the FAFSA, be aware that you're going to get a confirmation page. And if you scroll down on that confirmation page, you're going to see several things. You're going to be able to see your expected family contribution value immediately when you get to confirmation page. You're going to be able to see your Pell Grant eligibility. That's federal free money as soon as you file. You're also going to see your federal loan eligibility for students. Remember, as I said, if you find yourself in need of loans, federal student loans are the best. And soon thereafter, you can find out from the state of California, from the California Student Aid Commission, if you're Cal Grant eligible. So filing a FAFSA is going to give you a whole lot of information really quickly that's going to give you a pretty good idea what your financial aid might look like going forward into the next year. Every year I have people that tell me they're not going to file a FAFSA because it's too complicated. it takes too long. We make too much money. I know we're not going to get any money by filing a FAFSA. Well, I would love to see every family in the North State file a FAFSA and claim some of that money that's out there with regard to financial aid for their students. So I've created this page with what I believe are 5 compelling reasons to file a FAFSA. Hopefully at least one of them resonates with you and your family. First of all, regardless of income level, you got to file a FAFSA to receive the free California community college tuition. So many of the community colleges in California, and there are 116 of them, offer 2 years free tuition. And I use Shasta College as an example. 2 years free tuition. The requirements are first-time student, full-time student, file a FAFSA. So there's a lot of F's there. First-time, full-time, file a FAFSA. Regardless of income level, you can have a very high income, you can still get this 2 years free, but you got to file a FAFSA to do that. Secondly, remember I told you that government loans are the best kind of loans for students. Well, the only way you get access to those government loans for students is by filing a FAFSA. Third, filing a FAFSA allows the opportunity to secure need-based aid if life circumstances or financial circumstances change. So remember, we are obligated to use 2020 income information to fill out our FAFSA for the 2022-2023 year. But in 2021, your income may have gone down. In 2022, your income may be lower than it was when you filed your FAFSA using 2020 income, or your expenses may have gone up. For any number of reasons, we hope that none of these things happen to our families in the North State, but we know that life happens, as they say, and these things do happen. So if they do happen, you can go back to the financial aid office at your school. They can go in, they have the ability to change that information on your FAFSA, which could lower your expected family contribution value, which could raise your financial need, which could make you eligible for more financial aid. Financial aid office staff has the ability to change your FAFSA. You don't. You will not be able to go in and make those changes to your FAFSA. You have what would be called a special circumstances case, and you can take that forward to the financial aid office. But guess what? They can only change your FAFSA if you've got a FAFSA on file. So I encourage all families, it's just good insurance in case something would happen, which we hope would never happen, to have a FAFSA on file. Fourth, you can qualify for the California Middle Class Scholarship even if you earned up to $201,000 of income and have up to $201,000 of assets. That's free money from the state. I'll talk about it in more detail later, but in order to qualify for that, you've got to file a FAFSA. And then finally, number 5, some schools will not consider you for merit scholarships until you've submitted a FAFSA. So everything I've talked about so far has dealt with need-based aid or aid based on your financial need. Merit scholarships are not based on your financial need, but they're based on a talent or a skill that the student has, right? They could be a great student, so they're a great academic, they're a great artist, they're a great athlete, they're a great musician. And as an example, that school says, we want to upgrade our music program. You're such a great musician. We want you to come to our school and help us upgrade our music program. And we want you to come so badly that we're willing to incentivize you by giving you money, by giving you free money, by giving you a merit scholarship, or in this case, it would be a music scholarship. So I'm hopeful that at least one of these 5 reasons was compelling enough for you to say, yes, we will file a FAFSA this year. When I talked about the financial aid award offer, I told you that it was cost of attendance minus EFC equals financial need. I just give you an example of a cost of attendance here. This is UC Davis for the current year. I just want you to know what it looks like. You can go in on the internet, Google search cost of attendance, put in the name of the school you're interested in. You'll see a chart something like this. Down the left, these are all the elements of cost. Across the top are different living arrangements. And you wouldn't be surprised to know that depending on where you live, if you live with family, if you live on campus, the cost of attendance estimates, these are estimates, are going to be different. I give you a few examples of some comparisons for cost of attendance here. The first 3 types of schools are all public schools. So community college, there are 116 of them. They have the lowest cost of attendance. I list Shasta College here, but we got College of the Siskiyous, College of the Redwoods, etc., Butte College. There are 23 California State University schools, or CSUs, Chico State, Sacramento State, Sonoma State, Humboldt State, etc. Their cost of attendance is higher than the community college. And then there are 9 undergraduate University of California, or UC schools, UC Davis, UC Berkeley, UC Irvine, UCLA, etc. Their cost of tuition is higher. Their cost of attendance is higher than the Cal State. So you can see that listed here. Their costs would actually be higher if the state did not subsidize them, provide money for them to help them hold their costs down. So these are all public schools in California. There are private schools all across the country, up and down the West Coast. And in Reading, there are actually 2, National University and Simpson University. I've given you just one here. I've listed Stanford. And you can see that this is an annual 1-year cost of attendance at Stanford is about $80,000. It's like, whoa, stop right there. Sticker shock, way too high. Not even going to look at privates. Well, again, let me remind you, Stanford has over $40 billion in their endowment to be able to help give out to students. And private schools have more of their own money to give out in institutional aid than do the public schools. And I'm told by families every year, somebody says to me, you know, we were considering sending our son or daughter to a public California school. And we also, she also applied to a very expensive private school in California or maybe in Oregon. And lo and behold, because of the generous amount of institutional aid that came from that private school, it was actually less expensive for that student to attend that very expensive private school than it was for them to attend the public school. That happens. It happens a lot, quite frankly. I hear about it all the time. The only way to know what kind of an offer you're going to get from a private school is to apply, to get accepted, and to list them on your FAFSA, of course. Okay, so now a little bit more detail on what kind of financial aid, what value is there? How much money can I get? So for limited and middle income families, for federal aid, we're going to look at it through that lens of 3 different sources of aid, right? Federal, state, and schools themselves. For federal aid, there's the Pell Grant, free money, federal government, between $650 and about $6,500 per year, and you can get that for 6 years. You can use this Pell Grant money at any accredited school in the United States. The federal government also helps subsidize work study for schools. They also, of course, are the provider of federal student loans. Excuse me. California aid, Cal Grant, anywhere between $1,600 and a little over $14,000. The Cal Grant value varies depending on the type of Cal Grant you get and the type of school you go to. You get the Cal Grant for 4 years. And I'll show you a chart here in a few minutes that will tell you exactly the value of the Cal Grant depending on the type of school and type of Cal Grant. You can only use your Cal Grant at accredited California schools. You cannot take your Cal Grant money out of state. You can't take it to Nevada or Oregon and use it there. Again, there's the California College Promise Program, 2 years free community college, first-time student, full-time student, file a FAFSA. I mean, to me, it's the greatest bargain in the United States. I don't care what else you're buying. Free community college, invest in yourself. It's an amazing, amazing offer. And then finally, institutional aid. Well, there's scholarships of 2 types from the schools themselves. Need-based aid based on your financial need, merit-based aid based on a talent or a skill of the student. Varies by school. You never really know. Some schools are more generous than others. Some schools are more generous in 1 year than they are in the next year. It's really, really hard to tell. You only know really by getting a financial aid award offer from them. Okay, how about higher income families? Again, through there's 3 lenses of the sources. Federal aid, well, you're not going to get the Pell Grant because your income would be too high. That's for lower income families. Excuse me, but a family may be eligible for federal student loans for the student. So that's be aware of that, even if you're a higher income family. California aid, there's the California College Promise. That's the 2 years free tuition, regardless of income, even high income. If you make too much money, you're too high income to be able to qualify for the Cal Grant, you could still get the California Middle Class Scholarship. The first choice would be the Cal Grant. That's a more generous offer. But then there is the California Middle Class Scholarship. Again, you can make up to $201,000 and similarly have up to $201,000 of assets. It pays between 10 and 40% of tuition only at a Cal State school, 23 of them, or at the 9 undergraduate UC schools. So be aware of that. Again, institutional aid from the school themselves. You're not going to get financial need. You're not going to get need-based aid, but you could get merit-based aid, again, talent or a skill for the student. And then down here for all families, regardless of income, be aware of the Western Undergraduate Exchange Program, or what's called the WUI. You can look at their website to determine which schools are eligible or which participate. They are public schools across the West. If you go out of state to a public school in a different state, you could pay 2 times, 3 times, and sometimes 4 times the rate of in-state tuition in order to go there as an out-of-state student. However, if you go under the WUI program, you pay no more than 150% of the in-state tuition, or 1.5 times. So be aware of that. If you're thinking of going out of state, take a look at that. I know a lot of families in the North State take advantage of that and avail themselves of that. It's really a great service. Okay, now I'm going to talk a little bit about the Cal Grant. Again, it's so generous. I want to make sure you understand it well. This document is actually under the financial aid tab on our college options website. Cal Grant comes 3 different ways: Cal Grant A, Cal Grant B, Cal Grant C. A and B are for colleges and universities. C is for tech schools or trade schools. Cal Grant A requires a 3.0 GPA in high school or higher. Cal Grant B, 2.0 or higher. Cal Grant C, no GPA requirement. So then we take the GPA and the family size, and we determine the maximum income that a family could make and still qualify for a Cal Grant. So, for example, the way to use this chart: family of 4, 2 parents, 2 children, family size of 4. Cal Grant A, 3.0 or higher GPA. That family, those parents could make up to $116,800 in 2020 and still qualify for the Cal Grant. However, with lower grades, the family could make up to $61,400 and still qualify for a Cal Grant. So I tell students, get good grades. It really does have an impact on being able to get financial aid. The better the grades, the more you give yourself a chance to get financial aid. There's also an asset ceiling associated with Cal Grant eligibility, and for dependent students, it's $90,400. Now, I need to define for you, and I will define for you a little bit later, what assets get reported on the FAFSA and what do not. But a little bit of a spoiler alert, I'll tell you right up front, the home equity value of your home does not get reported on the FAFSA, and any retirement accounts you have do not, as well as some other things that we'll talk about a little bit later. Here are different ways to get a Cal Grant. There's really 4 different ways to get the Cal Grant. The easiest way, the simplest way, the best way is to get it coming out of high school. It's called the high school entitlement. It is a 2-year window. The year that you're a senior in high school, and then 1 year later. You get a Cal Grant in that window. You qualify on GPA, on income, on assets. You file by March 2nd. You're going to get a Cal Grant. That's the best way to do it. If for some reason you do not get a Cal Grant coming out of high school, there are other ways going through the community college that you could still get a Cal Grant. I've listed them here. I'm not going to talk about them in detail because for the sake of time, but be aware that if you have interest in that or you want to talk about that, you can reach out to me. I'd be happy to help in that regard. And then finally, there are competitive awards, but there are very, very, very few of those. So it's very difficult to get. So again, the best way to get it coming out of high school. It's another document that's under the financial aid tab on our website at College Options. I put this together to try and understand the value of the Cal Grant because it gets kind of complicated. So remember, we have Cal A, B, and C. A and B are for colleges and universities. C is for tech schools or trade schools. And then it depends, and this is the GPA requirement. And then the column here is California Community College, California State Schools, University of California Schools, private nonprofit like Stanford, Simpson, National, or private for-profit schools. And depending on which Cal Grant you get and where you go to school will tell you the value of that Cal Grant. So for example, if you go to UC Davis, you're Cal Grant A eligible, you're going to get $12,570, which is the full tuition at every UC school this year. At every Cal State school, the full tuition is $57.42. And so the Cal Grant was set up to pay full tuition at the Cal States and at the UCs. And then there's other values that are the value of the Cal Grant at the different types of schools. So hopefully you find this chart to be helpful. It's been helpful to me. I hope it's helpful to you. So I'm going to talk about the 5 elements that make up the EFC calculation very quickly. First is income, and parents' income and students' income will be asked for. Students, though, could make a little over $7,000 in 2020, and it has 0 impact on the expected family contribution calculation. Parents, an interesting rule for parents on filing the FAFSA: if parents are separated or divorced and not living together, which parent's income gets listed on the FAFSA? Well, the rule by the FAFSA, by the federal government, is whoever the student lived with the most in the 12 months prior to filling out the FAFSA, that's the parent's income that gets listed on the FAFSA. So this is the federal rule. It's not my rule. So you could use it strategically, perhaps. If you've got one parent that's got a low income and another parent that's got a high income, if it's at all possible for that student to live with that lower income parent at least one more day in the prior 12 months than that higher income parent, and I understand sometimes that's not possible, but if it is, then the lower income parent's income can be listed on the FAFSA. That'll hold down, that'll give a lower EFC, meaning a higher financial need, meaning most likely more financial aid. All right, assets are also reported. Same rule applies for parents. Whoever is reportable on the FAFSA for income, same parent for assets. The value of parents' assets get added to the EFC value at about a 5 or 6% rate. So about 5 or 6% of the value of parents' assets get added on top of the EFC value. For students, it's 20%. So we say assets are often best kept out of the name of the student if we do it legally and legitimately. That's the only thing I'm talking about here, is doing it legally and legitimately. And one way to do that is to put, if the student has a savings account, for example, they can put that money into a 529 educational savings plan, because interestingly enough, for the purpose of FAFSA, whether that 529 plan is in the name of the student or in the name of the parent, it is to be reported as an asset of the parent. So that takes that asset out of the reportable status for a student at a 20% hit and puts it in with the parent at a much lower effect on the EFC calculation. By the way, income is reported from 2020, last year, right? Or at least 1 year ago. There's nothing we can do about that. That's done. It is what it is. But assets are calculated and reported as of the day you file your FAFSA. So if you need to do something with your assets, legally and legitimately, to reduce the reportable amount of assets on the FAFSA, do it and then file your FAFSA. Don't get that reversed. So be aware of that rule for the FAFSA as well. So what assets get reported on the FAFSA and what don't? So parents kind of this is a likely area of mistakes sometimes for parents, to their detriment sometimes. So let me first tell you what does not get reported: the home equity in your home, any retirement accounts, IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, Roth, etc. Any life insurance products or annuities do not get reported. If you own a business, ranch, or farm, and your family controls or owns more than 50% of that business, ranch, or farm, and you have less than 100 employees, none of those assets of that business, ranch, or farm need to be reported. Your personal belongings, your furniture, cars, trucks, boats, clothing, tools, none of that value needs to be reported. So what does? Well, down here, cash, savings, checking, and I often say cash in your pocket, cash under your mattress, savings accounts, and checking accounts. If you have investment real estate, like property other than your home, it is the fair market value of that property minus what you owe. That would be the reportable asset. If you have rental property, fair market value minus what you owe in that rental property would be what you'd report on the FAFSA. Stocks, bonds, trusts, or other investments that are not in retirement accounts, they are reportable on the FAFSA. And again, college savings plans. But remember, always report them as an asset of the parents, even if it's in the name, even if they're in the name of the student. All right, a couple other things here. EFC calculation, number in the household, student, parents, siblings. That's pretty easy. But also, if there are other people living in the home and parents are paying more than 50% of the expense for that person, they can be counted in the number in the household. So, for example, if grandma is living with the family and parents are paying more than 50% of grandma's living expenses, count grandma in the number in the household. The higher the number in the household, the lower the EFC, the higher the financial need and the more potential for financial aid. Number in the household in college, count the student, of course, that's filing the FAFSA, and then any other siblings that are also in college. And then the final element of the 5 elements that make up the EFC calculation is the age of the older parent. The older the age of the parent, the less the impact assets have on the EFC calculation. All right, coming down the stretch here, thank you for hanging in there with me. I started with financial aid award offers. I'm going to end with financial aid award offers. Just again, remind you, that's the whole reason we fill out a FAFSA. So for every school that you apply to and you get accepted to, and you've listed them on your FAFSA, you will get a financial aid award offer from that school. Here's an example. Take the cost of attendance. I just made an example of $31,000 for my school here. Subtract your EFC. I've selected $5,000 as an example. EFC means that that student has a financial need of $26,000. That school will attempt to give financial aid those 4 different ways. Remember, grants, scholarships, work study, and loans. Attempt to give $26,000 of financial aid to meet the financial needs. Sometimes they can, and sometimes they come up short. A reminder, schools offer varying amounts of financial aid. Some are more generous than others. So again, I encourage applying to multiple schools to see multiple financial aid award offers. Okay. You didn't get enough financial aid, consider these options. I've got a long list here, but I just want to talk about the first one, which is negotiate, or just simply you can oftentimes parents don't realize they have the ability to go back to the financial aid office. I just tell parents, be kind, be polite, thank them for the financial aid offer that you've already received, and let them know that you need more financial aid in order for your son or daughter to attend. And particularly what you would like would be free money, right? To come your way, grants or scholarships. And sometimes they'll say yes. I've seen that happen. Private schools are more likely to say that yes than public schools are. Just be aware of that. But public schools could say yes as well. And then, or they could say no. But you don't have to be afraid that what they're going to say no. And because you ask, you've made me angry, and I'm going to take $2,000 away from your original financial aid award offer. They can't do that. They will not do that. So if you're willing, you can go back and you can talk to them. I will tell you this, the school would rather have you talk to them about your financial need rather than just walk away from that school. They'd rather know, give them a chance to be able to help you to get your student to that school than for you to just walk away from them. So if you'd like to reach out, you can do that and have that conversation with the financial aid office. Reducing college costs, as opposed to getting scholarships or getting money, this is how do you hold down your costs. Again, here's a list of them. Just going to talk about the top 2 very quickly. 1, graduate on time. The longer you're in school, the more it costs, and it's very expensive to be in school. So stay the course, stay on track, graduate in 4 years or less to the best of your ability. Career planning before or during your college time. I know that sometimes students go to school and they need to change majors. I know that happens. But if you do, you're probably going to lose credits. Means you're probably going to have to go to school longer. Means you're probably going to pay more money. So again, if we can help you understand your career goals before you go or soon after you get there, with the career exploration work we do at College Options, we'd be more than happy to be able to help you with that. Feel free to reach out to us. What about scholarships? Well, your high school counselors, they've seen people like you walk the halls of their schools year after year. They know where all the scholarships come from. Most schools actually have a scholarship link on their website. The McConnell Foundation is good for all 5 counties that we represent in the North State. And the Ford Family Foundation is good for Siskiyou County as well, McConnell, Siskiyou County as well. McConnell Scholars Program or Ford Scholars Program, very, very, very generous offer of free financial aid for students in the North State. Check it out on their websites. Community Foundation of the North State has a scholarship database, as does Reach Higher Shasta. You don't have to be a Shasta County resident for all of the scholarships that are listed there. Check out your local Chamber of Commerce, local Rotary clubs, local civic groups. They often have scholarships available for students. And then here's one that's really a good source that I have been exposed to. A congresswoman in Southern California has her staff create every year a student resource guide with a lot of scholarship information in that resource guide. Check out that website. It's amazing. And then finally, again, the financial aid office at the school that your son or daughter is attending. What I tell families is the financial aid office at your school, those folks should be your best friends. And why do I say that? Well, all day, every day, whatever you're doing, you know what they're doing? They're helping people find money to go to college. And what are you looking for? Money to go to college. So they know all the federal rules, they know all the state rules, they know all the institution rules, and they know where all the scholarships are inside the school that you or I or the school counselor has no idea where they might be. So don't be afraid to reach out to them. They're very helpful. Again, they should be your best friends. They owe you answers, and they want to talk to you. I talked earlier about special circumstances. If some things happen in your family that either drive down your income or drive up your expenses, you do have the ability to go back to that financial aid office, tell them about that. You've got a special circumstance case, and they may be able to help you revise the FAFSA for you and lower your EFC and get more financial aid potentially. Here's a 2-page document that I put together to try and understand loans, try to help myself actually understand loans. And I make it available to you. It's on our website under our financial aid tab. The first page is for student loans. They come 2 ways. Federal subsidized loans, meaning the government pays the interest while you're in school. It's amazing. They are limited based on your academic standing, however. So if you max out there per year, then you go on to the unsubsidized loans. You can get $2,000 more per year in unsubsidized loans, meaning that the interest starts to accrue as soon as you take that loan and get it to your school. Second page of that document is for parents. There are federal loans for parents. They're called PLUS loans. The interest rate's quite a bit higher, loan fee quite a bit higher. So as opposed to student loans, where I guarantee you that the best loans for students are from the federal government, I cannot make that same guarantee for parents. Federal loan, PLUS loans may be your best, but you also, down here, I've got some private student loan information. And private student loan market may be better for you. You may do better there than with the PLUS loan. And there's what I call the Amazon shopping sheet for parents loans for schooling is called simpletuition.com. You may want to check that out. I say spend your education dollar wisely on this chart. I just want to give you a couple of metrics to help you be maybe a little bit better consumer. Those 2 metrics are 1, retention rate, which is in this column right here, and then graduation rate. Retention rate is what percentage of students started as freshmen return to that school as sophomores. If those rates are low, then you think, well, they're not really taking care of their students so well, perhaps. And then graduation rate, of course, is what percentage of students started as freshmen graduated after 4 years, or in this case, they're also reporting 6-year graduation rates. But again, I want every student in North State to get in and get out, get done within 4 years. You'll note that I've listed some really, really great schools here, and there's some low graduation rates here for 4 years, probably because the students could not get the classes they needed because they were oversubscribed or overpopulated. So 1, students, be aware of that. You need to advocate for yourself. Make sure you're staying on track. Make sure you're talking to your counselors in college to make sure you're getting the courses that you need. If for some reason you can't get them, you do have other options, right? You could take the course at a community college. You can take it online. And so I encourage that. Take them online, take them at a community college, stay the course, stay on track. Don't be going 5 years, don't be going 6 years. My goodness, that costs a whole lot more money out of your pocket. All right, college options, collegeoptions.org. This is the landing page for our website. This happens to be our office in downtown Reading. It's where I am right now today as I record this. Here's the financial aid tab up here. There's also a financial aid tab right there. I've created on that financial aid page, this is a segment of it. I've created a lot of different topics with a lot of different information. Each one of these topics has a drop-down menu with it. And here is the section that gives you the presentation that I am making right now. If you want to refer back to it, you can go there. Here are some of those documents that I pointed out to you along the way, like the Cal Grant income and asset ceilings, like the student loans pages, etc. on our website. Check it out, financial aid tab. Here's another document that's on that link, the one I just showed you, senior year checklist for students, month by month, stay the course, stay on track. We've given you some information and some due dates, follow along and stay on track. This is my disclaimer. I am not a certified financial planner. I am not an accountant. I have been talking to you about financial aid and how you can, understand the process and perhaps lower your expected family contribution in order that you can maximize your potential for financial aid. But before you would go and do something crazy with your money to be able to lower your EFC, you may want to talk to a certified financial planner. You may want to talk to an accountant about that. Just be aware of that. And then finally, some considerations and reminders. The Cal Grant's good for 4 years, including community college. You can burn up your Cal Grant at a community college, perhaps. So if you go 3 years to community college and you take the Cal Grant for 3 years, you've only got 1 year left if you're going off to a 4-year school for 2 years. And it's worth more at the 4 years. So you could put it on hold at a community college. Just be aware of that. Meet all deadlines. Cal Grant, March 2nd. And then I put in small font, and I almost want to whisper this, but I won't. Except if you're going to the community college, then the Cal Grant deadline is September 2nd. But again, there's no reason to wait. You're using 2020 information for your income. File a FAFSA by March 2nd. I would strongly recommend that. A couple other things on this page. Let me just mention verification. I haven't mentioned that before. It is a process that is a financial aid process. The federal government would say to the financial aid office at your school, we need to do a verification process on this family's FAFSA. And don't be afraid of it. There's nothing to fear. It's a little bit cumbersome to go through the process, but really what the federal government is saying is through the college financial aid office is prove to me that the information you put on your FAFSA is true. Well, how do you do that? Well, rule number 1, put true information on your FAFSA, and they'll give you some forms to fill out. You give it back to them. You'll be totally fine. Don't freak out. Nothing to worry about if you get called for verification. About 1 in 3 families get called for verification. So don't be surprised if that might happen to your family. Finally, with gratitude to the McConnell Foundation out of Reading and the Ford Family Foundation out of Roseburg, Oregon, because of their generous grants and offer of funding to college options, we're able to do what we do and provide the services we provide to those 5 counties in the North State that we serve at no cost to families, which we are very, very grateful for. So our thanks to the McConnell Foundation and the Ford Family Foundation. Then finally, here is my contact information again. Let me say thank you for tuning in. Thank you for making it to the end of this recording. I hope it was helpful. Again, my number 1 goal for you was to take some of the mystery out of the financial aid process. I hope that I was able to do that. I hope I've been able to do that. Here's my email address again. Reach out to me at any time. My phone number, 768-510-3530 area code. Reach out to me at any time. Thank you so much for being part of this. I really appreciate it. Again, hope it was helpful. And if I can help you in any way, if I can help you fill out a FAFSA, if I can help your friends, your neighbors, family members in anything they have with regard to financial aid, I'd be delighted to be able to do that. Don't be afraid to reach out. All right. Thank you very much.